Okay, I'd like to call to order this Committee of the Whole meeting. Welcome everybody to the Council Chambers this evening. Thank you all for being here. First item is disclosures of pecuniary interest, and I'll ask any member if they have any pecuniary interest they would like to declare at this point. I don't see any. Of course, you can declare one anytime if you need to. And that moves us right on to report of municipal officers. And the first one, item 5.1, public notice, and it's a staff report on the 2019 municipal budget. And we'll turn it over to the Director of Corporate Services for the report.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I am pleased to bring this report to Council for approval and wish to thank Council for their ongoing support and many questions that have been asked throughout this process. I would also like to thank David and senior management for their support during my first full year of this budget process. Even though there are still some variables and unknowns in this budget, it is important to proceed like many other municipalities have so that staff can continue to work on projects in a timely manner. We have kept some flexibility in this budget to allow us to respond to these variables until they are finalized. And these main variables unknown are the OMPF funding, school and county rates. New staffing positions will not be hired until these variables are known. When the information is received, we anticipate the blended tax rate increase to be approximately plus or minus 3%. And when I talk about plus or minus, I'm talking tenths of a percentage, so close to that. All of the items that were directed by Council at our previous meeting to be included or not have been actioned on and have been included or excluded in the following report budget that you have in front of you. Staff have provided answers to questions received during the budget process and will continue to be available if you have any more questions. I just would like to highlight a couple of the budget items within the budget. Highlights include we are contributing $500,000 more annually to the Legacy Fund, which brings the annual contribution to this reserve to approximately $1.4 million. This will allow for significant projects such that have been discussed recently, including the recreation complex, town hall renovations, or outdoor sports facility to be within financial reach. Use of technology solutions to help better manage assets. Cybersecurity protection as we see more Ontario municipalities being hacked or possibly held for ransom. Taking full advantage of the economic opportunities this community is so fortunate to have. Properly resourcing the human resource and payroll services of a $40 million business. Reducing the deficit in our fleet reserve and working towards building a more sustainable model. And a wide variety of capital projects which include infrastructure and the Lamont Outdoor Sports Complex facility. There are still a couple of items, though, that staff would like direction on. The first one is the Council Technology Supplement. During budget discussions, it was suggested that Council receive an annual increase of $500 per member to offset some costs involved in their duties. Our position on this is neutral, and we look forward to Council direction. This would have a very minimal impact of a 0.01% on the blended tax rate. The second issue that was slightly different in the report is the plow truck driver. In the operating budget, a partial plow truck driver was supported by staff and council in the operating budget. But due to the fact that the plow was not approved in the capital budget presented, the salary was taken out of the operating budget that you have in front of you. Staff at this time would like to request that this item be re-included in the budget as originally requested, as the position would not be hired until the winter control season, and this would allow the plow issue to be resolved by then. Council approval will still be required for both the staff hiring and the plow, but if we can put the staff person in the operating budget, it will allow for better planning and more strategic recruitment. This inclusion also will keep us within a plus or minus the 3%, and it's about a 0.06% on the blended tax rate. This finishes my report, and I will take any further questions you may have at this time.
Okay, so why don't we take questions before I read the recommendation? We'll go with the Deputy Mayor first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Sue. Well done on this, Sue. The council remuneration, that was $500 on top of the $1,200, correct? That was what was asked? Or was it? You can.
On top of the, are you talking the council remuneration for the 1/3 exemption?
Oh, I'm talking, you were saying, was that for the council remuneration, or is that for the IT?
That was for the
the IT.
motion that you presented, the discussion. Yes,
Yeah.
yours.
So the IT is stated at $1,200, and it was asked that we add $500 to that, correct? Or
You had presented an option during our budget deliberations of $500 per member.
The CAO has a comment.
Yeah, through you to clarify, in the remuneration policy the council approved was a line there. Council, you may have it available, or the clerk, about a $1,200 up to $1,200, and then that was approved, and then you're now speaking, and Sue is speaking about 500 additional. Yeah, it was your request, yes.
And to be clear, that right at this moment is not in the budget. And if council wanted to add the 500, it would require a resolution of council now, preferably. So just FYI. Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for further clarification, or maybe for my own understanding, that the $1,200 that was part of the recommendation for IT expense was over a 4-year period, correct? That was not per year. That was for 4 years. So it's essentially $400 a year, or $300 a year.
That is correct.
Right. And so what's being proposed, or what's been suggested, is that that 500 per year be added to that?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, through you, that was to be added on to that, so that would have taken up to about $425 per year. When looking at
so $500 over the 4-year period. Okay.
Just to be clear, there's nothing on the table at the moment, and so it would require a resolution, and we would consider it at that time. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sue, I was wondering, when we go to express the average annual tax increase, we do it by the average annual household. I find that a little confusing sometimes because we have different averages of households. I'm wondering, in the future, could we have it expressed as the county did this year, as per $100,000? There's so much per 100,000. Would that make it? I think that would make it easier for people to understand when looking at the tax assessment what they're being charged extra.
Yes, whatever council would like to see it as, it's a percentage of what. If you would like to see it at 100,000, we can do that.
Would that require a motion to move forward, or is that just something they can look at
No, it sounds
in the
like
upcoming budget years?
Sounds like the administration. I'm sure, frankly, the administration could produce that information, in relatively short order and distribute it to council. It sounds like we have some agreement across the way there to do that. Okay. Anything further from members? The Vice Deputy Mayor. Yep. Questions, comments.
I had a question and a comment, Sue. The 2019 allocation for the Intermunicipal Partnership Fund has not been announced. It's an unknown at this point in time. At what point of the year will we hear about that? Is it in the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? When do we hear?
I do not know that answer at all. I could speculate. Government has a March 31st fiscal budget year. I'm hoping that we will know within their budget parameters, but I honestly have not heard a whisper from
1%
anyone.
increase equates to about $145,000, is that correct? $140,000? If our 1% tax increase in spending?
Yes.
So if the partnership funding, we find out in a month or two it's dropped by $150,000, that increases our increase by 1% approximately, if we hear back. But we don't know what that number is yet. But so I was pleased to see in the report, because there's several new staff additions in this year's budget. So I just want to commend you, David, our CAO, for holding off on those full-time appointments until such time we do hear back from the provincial government. I think that's a fair statement in what I'm reading. Mr. Mayor, my comment, I'm really appreciative of, when you take a look at a household residential assessment, $310,000 is a $100 increase, $102. There's a fair amount in this budget this year, and one thing I feel really good about is that legacy fund. It's becoming increasingly difficult for us to fund certain high-level projects, and I'm referring to the pool in particular. Whereas if, at some point in time we decided to move forward with the pool, and I hope we will be in this term of council, we need to find that funding from somewhere. And right now we don't have the borrowing capacity to build a new pool. So one good thing about this legacy fund, and I think I've got my number correct here, and David, help me out, but or Sue, is that we're looking at close to $8 million with that legacy fund in the next 5 years, I believe is the number I heard a while back, and growing after that 5 years. So each year we put in this $500,000 to the legacy fund this year, 1.1 last year, I believe the number was. That's significant. And so we keep the path moving forward with contributing to this legacy fund. It gives us that opportunity, I think, in the future, Mr. Mayor, to take a look at an option towards financing our pool facility. Because right now, in the absence of recreation infrastructure monies, and our borrowing capacity is not there for the pool, I think that legacy fund is a great thing. So that's a really positive item that's been placed in the budget. We should be, I believe, as a community, especially pool people, should be pleased to hear about. We've got many roads many roads being resurfaced. We've got our outdoor ball complex moving forward in 2019. We're adding one new day to our landfill site operations. Snyder Road's finally going to be. We're going to finally take a look at our pre-engineering report for Snyder Road, which is probably the poorest condition road in Saugeen Shores. So there's a lot of. I think there's something in this budget for every a lot of members of the community. So I'm confident that we made a good decision with the 3%, Mr. Mayor.
Those comments, Councillor Rich.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So when we went through the budget process, the Chamber of Commerce came forward with a budget, and I can't remember exactly how that went. We gave that back to them, and they had to bring it forward again. I noticed there's a BIA budget here, but I don't see anything that's kind of related to the Chamber.
I think at the time of the operating budget, there was a $13,500 increase to their budget with as we go forward, look at the agreement between the two parties to see exactly what was covered under that agreement, because Pumpkin Fest was one of the concerns that was raised through that budget. So as for now, the $13,500 is included in the operating budget. So I don't think it's come back, like we've had a chance to review those agreements.
Okay, so they're and when I remember that conversation, they were going to bring another budget to us, right? Because there was the $30,000 that was taken out for Pumpkin Fest as well, and I found it unclear at the time, but so there will be no further presentation with regard to that?
I wouldn't say there wouldn't be further presentation. I believe that the town was asked to go back and look at the agreement to see specifically what was under the agreement between the two parties for tourism.
CAO.
Yeah, I can comment on that. And sorry, Sue, I was trying to catch your eye there. So staff have had the opportunity to meet with our colleagues at the Chamber, and our current agreement is not specific in terms of levels of support for Pumpkin Fest specifically. The Chamber has assured us that the increased funding will help them deliver the tourism services that we've been hoping for and they would like to deliver for us. They continue to be supportive of special events in our community. The agreement, I believe, does expire this year, so we'd be working with them. And in fact, I'll look to Jane. Does the agreement expire this year? I'm sorry? Okay, yeah, so a year from now. So we'll be working closely with the Chamber to make sure that our goals and their goals align, and the funding continues to be appropriate.
One thing that's important to note, just if I can, that one thing this budget does fund is a tourism study in connection with RTO 7, and we've committed significant funding to that, which is going to help us to align those services between the municipality, the Chamber, our business improvement areas, et cetera, and get, I think, a really solid plan going forward, which will inform the agreements we strike with the Chamber in the coming months, and also our work internally and our work with all of our partners in the tourism sector. So that's an exciting feature in here that's going to advance that discussion. Pardon me, Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mayor, I would just like to share my concerns in terms of what I believe to be a bit of a misrepresentation in the increase or request for a $13,000 increase, when in fact what was declared in the previous budget discussions was that in addition to that, there's also an absorption of the $30,000 previously allocated to Pumpkin Fest. So that's been reallocated within the budget. So in fact, I would suggest that it's in fact a $43,000 increase request. Just like that noted. Appreciate it.
Further comments on anything related to the budget? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is about the, I guess it would be to Sue, and perhaps the mayor would join in on this. The reports that I read from the news indicate that the county at this point has settled on a 4.25% increase in the budget, and our calculations are based on a 4%. Is that going to make an appreciable difference to us? And perhaps that hasn't been settled, I don't know.
I believe they, was it 4.4%, I believe, approved an increased levy, which would be about a $33,500 difference than what I budgeted based on my initial calculations, which is about a 0.12% on a blended tax rate.
But we're waiting still?
Yeah, I don't have the final allocation amongst the lower tiers as to exactly what our portion will be, but it should be fairly close to that number.
Thank
you. Okay. The Deputy Mayor?
I think most of our questions are done, Mr. Mayor, so I'd like to make two motions, and I'd like to do them one at a time. The first would be that Council approve the reallocation of the $18,000 for the part-time snowplow operator.
Just so I'm clear, the resolution is to add that back into the budget to fund the snowplow driver,
yes,
as suggested.
As previously suggested, yes.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Carr. Is there any discussion? The resolution on the floor is to add back the $18,000 that was originally in the budget to fund an additional snowplow operator from October to December of 2019, and that would be pending, of course, the purchase of a plow for that individual to operate. So if the resolution were to carry, it would give the administration the flexibility to hire that person in the event that they do choose through fleet to purchase that new plow. Is that clear to everybody before we take any questions? Okay. The Vice Deputy Mayor?
That amount is fairly insignificant towards the tax rate. Again, what does that amount to, Sue? What change does that result in?
It's a 0.06% on the blended tax rate.
Further comments? Don't see any? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so we've added back the $18,000 for the truck driver. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the second motion I'd like to put forward is that the Council add on the $500 to the Council IT remuneration for the year. This is for Council IT remuneration, not the one-third tax. This is for the IT aspect.
So the resolution is to add $500 to the IT remuneration, which would take the annual, or no, the 4-year number to $1,700. That's seconded. So it's been seconded now by Councillor Mayette. It's on the floor. Are there any questions or comments to the resolution? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In seconding that, I think it needs to be made clear to those that might be listening that this isn't just a stack on. This is, for those that might not be aware, the way our remuneration was changed by the federal government this past year, that it used to be that 1/3 of the remuneration councillors received was tax-free in recognition of out-of-pocket expenses that weren't covered previously by anything else. So that was removed. So that was essentially a significant tax hit that each person sitting in this council had to absorb. So this is a recognition of that. And furthermore, the $450 a year, I think, was that what you said? $425 a year that we would be eligible to claim in expenses for things like IT or likewise is discretionary upon each of us. We don't a person wouldn't necessarily have to claim those things. You don't get them automatically. It's based on receivable things that you take. Is that correct?
That hasn't been decided at this time. That would have to be a policy of council. So as it is now, we don't have a policy on how that would be allocated. We would need to create one. Also, it's important to be clear, and maybe Sue can correct me if I'm wrong on this, or correct one of us. As far as I can tell, the one-third remuneration has been accounted for in the budget before this $500 addition. So if you read the one line here, maybe Sue can speak to it, but staff are recommending an increase to council remuneration to keep council members' net income the same before and after the elimination of the one-third exemption as other municipalities have. Depending on the position, the impact ranges from $1,483 to $3,482 annually. So that is in the budget right now, a funding to make councillors whole, I guess, if you like, with regard to the one-third tax. And so this at 500 over 4 years would be in addition to that, just for clarity. So further questions or comments from members? I will be opposing the addition. I think, we just passed a resolution earlier to take into account the increases to our remuneration from a study, which created some fairly significant increases already, and now we're going to incorporate the one-third. In addition to that, we have IT remuneration now of $1,200 over 4 years, which is in addition to that. I think we've had some very significant increases to our remuneration. I think they're all appropriate, but I don't think the additional 500 is necessary, and so I'll be voting against it. But if there's nothing further, I'll ask all in favor of the resolution. All in favor? Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. All opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's defeated. I'll ask for the vote again. All in favor of the resolution? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? That's carried. Okay. So, I've been asked by the CAO if we could take, a 5-minute break? Let's break for 5 minutes. The administration would like to just rerun the numbers on the resolution now that we've done those two things, and they can come back, and then we'll have a final recommendation to consider. So let's break for 5. Okay, so why don't we call the meeting back to order. Our friends with the calculators have done the figuring quickly here, so I'm going to read the recommendation now, and if there's any further discussion, of course, we can have it, but we'll read it at the moment with the new numbers. So the recommendation is the council approve the municipal budget for the year 2019 as follows, and now the numbers have changed from what's written down, so listen carefully. Expenditures, operating and reserves, $29,791,429. And capital is expenditures of $10,161,420. And so the total expenditures for 2019 would be $39,952,849. In revenues of operating and reserves is $15,860,438. Capital, $8,622,820, and for a total 2019 budgeted revenue of $24,483,258. Total municipal taxation for operating and reserves, $13,949,901. For capital, $1,538,600. For a total 2019 budgeted taxation of $15,488,501. That the town of Saugeen Shores tax levy be set at $15,488,501, and that the BIA levies for 2019 be set at $33,000 for the Port Elgin BIA and $29,350 for the Southampton BIA, and that the tax levy bylaw establishing the 2019 tax rates be considered by council at a future date. Questions or comments to the resolution? Before we take the vote, I'd just like to say thank you to the administration. We appreciate all of your hard work on bringing this budget. It's always an important process, helps council, particularly with new members of council, but all of us to better understand this operation. You've done a good job of taking us through it and showing us all of those details. And as the Vice Deputy Mayor said, and I certainly agree, there's a lot of good stuff in this budget. It's a growth budget for the municipality. It's a growing municipality, and we're planning for that growth. We're building for that growth, and it just gives an opportunity for us to continue what promises to be a very exciting year in Saugeen Shores. So with that, you've heard the recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you all very much. So, let me just go back to the agenda. That moves us then on to 5.2, General Government. And the first item, staff report on the Council Community Committee Program, the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I looked at that. I saw CCC in my language. That's chocolate chip cookies. So I'm pleased to speak to you about this report. Saugeen Shores has a rich history and continues to have in benefiting from volunteer experience in the community. Many of the things that make our community one of the best ranked communities to live in Canada are directly a result of community volunteer organizations and their drive and passion. It is people that make those organizations and people that populate our own town volunteer committees. Unfortunately, our current committee structure excludes many talented people who may not live here year-round or may not be willing, ready, or able to commit to a 2-year term with uncertain goals and objectives. Volunteers like to align their goals and invest their contributions where they see the most impact. The proposed model is a way to expand the reach into our diverse community and tap deep into the knowledge and talents of people who live and visit here. The more closely we can align talents, passion, interest, and tasks, the more successful we will be and the more volunteers we will have. Let me give you a hypothetical example. We have an excellent waterfront master plan, the best I have seen. Hundreds of consultations have taken place in the formation of it, and it shows. We have the plan. It's chock full of recommendations, more than 100, and they are very diverse, very, very diverse. Perhaps we have a marine biologist living in town or spending summers here. The beaches section of the waterfront master plan has 9 recommendations. The biologist might be happily willing to participate in a couple of meetings to advance one of those recommendations. Perhaps she is so jazzed by the success when she goes home to tell her partner about the positive experience it was and what a difference she made, he, who happens to be a communications guru who loves to tell a story, decides to put his hand up and volunteer. It's only a couple of meetings, right? The signage and map section has 10 recommendations. Perhaps he, along with a resident who knows and appreciates the history of our waterfront, collaborate with a local graphic designer and over a few meetings address 2 of the recommendations between now and fall. That's 3 recommendations implemented and 2 highly engaged residents who we hope will speak with their friends and neighbors, getting them engaged. But let's imagine alternate scenarios. Neither the biologist nor her partner think to volunteer because 2 years of monthly meetings is not something they want to commit to. Or even worse, they do volunteer and get appointed to a committee, and neither of their 2 areas of interest are high enough priority for the committee to consider, and they stop coming. These last 2 scenarios are not uncommon in communities and committees across the country. The goal of the proposal is to better align talents, passion, and time with desired outputs with as many people as possible. The more specific the alignment, the greater chance for success. That was only one hypothetical example. Soon, we are soft launching the website. Staff were reflecting, quite literally last week, it would be wonderful if we had a few web-savvy citizens that could spend an hour or 2 browsing it and giving their feedback. There are lots of examples like this in our municipal world. I participated on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. That committee had great success when tasked with something very specific to deliver right out of the plan. Following council support and input, staff will take feedback and direction and formalize a plan, including developing a robust communication strategy. The more people that know about it, the better. The more people involved, the better. We hope all former members of committees will choose to participate. Their experience and context will be very important. Staff will administer the program and work nimbly to keep momentum going. We will report back to council on progress and accomplishments if approved. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, if the plan doesn't work out, we will have learned from the experience. I'm happy to answer any questions about the proposal.
Thank you. I'll read the recommendation, and then we can take questions or comments. It's recommended that Council direct staff to develop a formal Council Community Committee program to enhance community volunteer involvement on town priorities based generally on the parameters outlined in this report. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly understand and appreciate the comments of our CAO about the advantages of having specific targeted committees. I know that nobody likes to be involved in meetings that seem just rote and called because it's the third Tuesday of the month or of every month, something like that. I understand that. People want to be feeling like they're doing something useful. I would ask if we could consider having, though, a waterfront committee retained. And my reasons are this. Our waterfront is one of the most important features of our community. It's very complex. There are a number of complex issues. And we do have a wonderful waterfront master plan, but that master plan is being challenged. We have, for instance, the challenges of climate change that we need to look at. And having an overarching waterfront committee, one of the big advantages I see with that is having people on it with an institutional memory. I think it's important to have that overarching guidance of someone who, of individual citizens in our town who, can bring a number of skills and experiences with the waterfront. That doesn't preclude us from having specific targeted subcommittees that would take on specific issues such as the CAO just gave as an example. But our waterfront committee, I really feel, is something that we don't need to meet every month. Maybe we meet once every 2 months. But I think it's important to have an overarching committee there because it is so important to our culture, to our economy, to protect our natural features, and there's so many different issues that we're facing, but we still need to protect. And one way of protecting is to have people on that committee who have that institutional memory for the continuity, I guess is what I'm saying. So that's my concern. I'd like to hear what other people have to say about it, but I like the idea of specific targeted committees to address certain issues that are coming up in general, but I feel like for our waterfront, I'd like to see us retain that as a standing committee in some form.
Thank you for those comments. Further comments from members. Councillor Schreider.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I agree. Maybe I was a little bit surprised to see the Waterfront Committee and also the Recreation and Active Transportation Committee as being ones that that would no longer exist. I agree with Councillor Grace on her comments about the Waterfront Committee. I would second that and/or consider, I guess, a motion with regards to keeping one of them, or if it was the Recreation and Active Transportation one, that the waterfront maybe fell under that as well. But I do like the idea presented with regards to having a pool of residents that perhaps have specialty interest, but perhaps can't afford to contribute their time on a 2-year term. So I think the concept is fantastic, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that for clarity, nothing precludes council from striking a committee at any time. Council can strike whatever committees it wishes. And so that doesn't preclude you from moving forward with the recommendation as written. I would really suggest that you give this a chance to function, because I think that things have changed a lot, in my time around here and in just throughout the history of this council, really, and this municipality, where at one time I think you could appoint committees and they would sit and they would stand for a long period of time and they would continue to meet and be productive. But it's the way people volunteer today. I just don't think it jives well with, people want shorter commitments with high return on their time invested. And I think you'll find that with this council acting as we do in Committee of the Whole, your Waterfront Committee or your Rec Committee or whatever, we are all those committees combined. And then reaching out to the community on specific tasks, whether it's on the waterfront or whether it's on the rail trail or whether it's wherever it is, that we can have a flexible way to engage the public and deal with all those issues that you're raising. But it's always important to remember that the structure of this municipality is with council sitting as Committee of the Whole, acting as the primary committee of the municipality, and I think this gives us a really dynamic way to reach out to the public on those issues and deal with them directly and give them good return on their investment of time and energy, which I think, and it also bring new people into the mix. I think one thing we've seen, and it's no comment on the folks we've been appointed to those committees, we've appointed some great people to those committees over the years, but they've tended to be the same people for the most part, and that's because those are the people who can commit, and they're good people, really good people. But it'd be great to see some different people and more people involved. Those people still involved and more on top of them. And I think this could do that. So we can always appoint more committees if we feel like it's not functioning the way we want it to, or we feel like some mandate's being missed. But I wouldn't be afraid to give this a try and see how it functions for this council and for this municipality and revisit if, we can continue to revisit it whenever you like. It's entirely council's decision. So those are just some thoughts that occurred to me as I was listening to you. Councillor Myatt, or pardon me, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess my career dates back to starting in 1975, so I'm getting a little old, I guess. But over the years, I've attended, if not hundreds of meetings, maybe thousands of meetings, and I've been on committees where at times, and this is not a slam or slight to any of the volunteers that sit on those committees, believe me, but sometimes you tend to meet for the sake of meeting on some committees, not all, and as it's not a slam, I just think that we do meet for the sake of meeting sometimes. I like the idea of a task-oriented group of people that you get in and you get out. We live in a very busy society, and I think if you can get those very specialized people involved with whether it's beach access points, or whether it's a new ball complex looking at the drawings, or whether it's a new train station lands, we bring in a group to take a look at what might happen down there. I mean, the list is endless, and I think it's got a lot of merit. I believe that we need to look at this change as an opportunity, not as a threat to our volunteers or to our community. I think, in fact, this committee format will engage more volunteers. I think our CIO has very eloquently outlined how this could involve a whole lot more volunteers in our community, and I think it has the opportunity to move projects forward in a more timely fashion. I think sometimes we do get stalled at committee levels, and if the terms of reference are set up appropriately and as approved by council, I'm assuming we're getting lots of information back from staff on this. I think that we can. I think that the committee can be charged with a specific task, and let's get it done. And so I think it's a. I labored on this for a little bit. I tried to talk myself into keeping Waterfront Committee as a committee, but I just keep going back to I think this is a smart move. As I say, I think it'll involve a whole lot more people, and there are people that don't tend to maybe like to do the application process to volunteer for a committee. If you approach them, you pick up the telephones. We've got a special project coming up. We know you got a lot of experience in this area. Could you help move this project forward? So I think there's a lot of merit to that. So I think it's an opportunity to attract more specialized people for specialized tasks. I think it'd be a very good thing, and have access to a broader resource of volunteers. I like to hear 4 assurances though from our CAO. I'm gonna number them here 1 to 4. And I've asked at the end of the four if our CIO could give me a nod, say yes, all those will be looked after. So there's some things I'd like to see happen before I can support the motion. I would like to be assured that Council will see the list of all applicants for final opportunity to look at those applicants before the final decisions are made for the task force specialty group committee members. I'd like to be assured that Council will see that list. I'd like to be assured that Council will have the opportunity to present task force specialty team ideas and bring them to this Council for approval. I'd like to think that that will be our role as a Council member, to present those task force ideas. I'd like to be assured that specialty teams be recruited via application process, not only application process, but also provide the flexibility for staff to pick up the phone. And because not everybody likes the application process. Some people like to receive a phone call. So we heard you've got a lot of good skills in this area. Can you help us out in this short-term committee? I'd like to be assured that the results of the specialty teams, if this motion moves forward and we set up these teams, that the results of the specialty teams be shared with the residents of Saugeen Shores prior to any final decisions being made with special projects. And everyone make the assumption that surely that would happen. So those are the four things that I believe, those are the four assurances I would like to hear from our CEO that, yes, those four things would happen.
Thanks for the comments, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, yes, and yes. And the one where I'm a little bit soft on, I think we're on the same wavelength, so I just want to be clear, is we're happy to share the list of people that are have put up their hand. However, to be nimble is staff want to have the ability to tap in from that without council's approval. So when I think about that web discussion last week, if the staff said, hey, we'd like to get 2 or 3 people, we'd look at the pool and we'd call up those 3 people. We don't want to be coming to council and reviewing who we're going to pick. The intent of it is to be fluid and be nimble and get lots of work done. Yeah, and the mayor's just reminded me is the direction is that if you approve the direction, it's that we will more formally develop the program, and you'll see your comments in there.
We would see the terms of reference. And just one final comment, Mr. Mayor, and I took the opportunity to meet with some I call community leaders, and they know who they are. They're listening to this. Some are here this evening, but I heard some pretty interesting comments from those individuals, and I think that with the case I was one member of council presenting this evening, I think majority can live with what I'm recommending, that with those assurances. I know that we received comment, I believe all of council received it from the Port Elgin Saugeen Beach Association. I know that I think it's important to some groups like Port Elgin Saugeen to have waterfront committee be maintained. But I really do believe we can do just as good a job, if not better. I think we can do a better job with this new format. I really think we'll be able to get there. So this isn't a lack of support for Port Elgin Saugeen or any other community group or any other volunteer. I just think it provides a whole lot more opportunities for more volunteers to get involved, and from a specific task standpoint. So I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Further comments from members? We'll get Councillor. I want to get Councillor Mayette, and I'll come back to Councillor Grace. Grace, then.
Question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So would minutes be taken at these task force meetings?
It wouldn't be formal minutes. We wouldn't have a staff person there taking minutes. When we have a specific task, we would outline the parameters of it. Again, it's 2 or 3 meetings, so we would ask them to report back on it, but not specifically to take minutes.
Councillor
follow-up
Grace, yeah.
then, would the report be shared and published?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, our intent is to share the successes. My sense is we'll get a council report or an update on those specific examples. So in this particular case, the scenario that I gave, if it was something specific to the waterfront master plan, there would be some follow-up. In the case that I use with, we want somebody to review the website, probably not. We're just looking for a couple of people back. I think what we would do is we would report that that's how we used the members and their involvement, but we probably wouldn't do a report saying, whatever suggestions they made on a website. We're trying to streamline to a certain extent, and I've used the term 3 times tonight, be more nimble and be able to accomplish more.
I always important to remember that we will be seeing more on this. If we approve this tonight, we'll have a policy come forward with some more details and another opportunity to discuss any areas we could see improvement with that. Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I too, like it was previously mentioned, had a bit of a hard time getting my head around this because we're so ingrained in the way that we've done this with committees and ad hoc committees and boards. And I'm starting to come around this way, thinking, in fact, I'm looking at the pictorially what's in the agenda, and I wonder if it's maybe possible to get that up on the board for those in attendance to get a pictorial view of what we're actually talking about. And in the meantime, while our clerk works on that, the one thing that, and Vice Deputy Mayor Mayette made the point of pointing out that we should have some way for council to approve, know ahead of time, or when one of these committees is being struck, ad hoc committees or special purpose committees, because I would hate to see, I look at committees as an extension of what we do. We're here to represent the general public and to try and garner opinion on any matter that comes before us to represent the public. And the committees are an extension of that. Those are people who come forward and for special purposes and the special skills they have represent the opinions of the public so that they can make recommendations to this body, and then we can direct staff to do what it is that the public wants us to do, the right thing. And I would hate to see a situation where staff are able to handpick certain people for certain small tasks to get them to a predetermined or pre-arranged output that they want, and be able to say, well, this person, that person agrees with me, so I'm going to pick them, but the other people, I don't want them on that committee because they're just going to give me whatever the situation might be. I just don't want to see a situation. So I think there has to be somewhere a line drawn back to council to say, this is the task. These are the people that are going to go off and do some work over the next period of time and come back with a recommendation. And we would say, yes, that is a good use of this tool, and those are good people that have been chosen to come back with that task. I just don't want to turn that whole representation of the public thing over to staff to be able to choose who they are. Staff don't choose who sits in this body. Staff shouldn't necessarily have a choice to choose who gives input and recommendation.
The CAO.
Yeah, I just want to comment that quite frankly, that will be very cumbersome and may not allow the success of the program. I just want to envision, and I'm wrapping my head around it as well, is that we're not suggesting we create committees. We're suggesting that we have something like a waterfront master plan that has over 100 actionable items on it, and we're not achieving that. We're not making progress on them. So what we'd like to be able to do is we'd like to say to citizens, hey, who's willing to lend a hand? And when we go down and their council-approved recommendations, we can tap into those people and we would report back on that. But if, quite candidly, if we have to start going back and forth about who and what and when, then it becomes more of an administrative burden than the 2 meetings that the people are going to participate. We'll take the feedback absolutely. We'll try and get some way. Maybe there's 2 groups and 2 tiers. But I just want to be clarified. These aren't committees. These are groups of people that are going to meet twice on a particular item or 3 times. Something like that. And it's to be able to be reactive and responsive to things. Because we know the waterfront master plan, this is just one example of dozens, has over 100 recommendations, great recommendations, and having a hard time getting to any of them, quite frankly.
The Vice Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, just a couple final comments and won't be long. You took the words out of my mouth about the two-tiered approach. I think there's an opportunity with what comes back as a recommendation. We may look at that larger scale project versus a very short in and out, and so maybe it is two-tiered. But I think council needs to keep in mind too, Mr. Mayor, is that tonight is just basically asking staff, we get another kick at the cat when the report comes back in a month or two, whenever it's coming back, to see what this whole thing looks like, how it shakes out, correct?
That's correct. Yep, there'll be the administration is going to create a policy. So basically this evening we're saying we think this may be a good idea. We'd like the administration to explore it and flesh it out in more detail for a policy for us to enact, and we'll have another kick at it when that happens. Yep.
Just one final comment, and this is, I think, building on what the mayor was saying. There is always the opportunity for council to strike a committee. So when you think about the Lamont outdoor sports facility, that is a substantial enough project with lots of input and lots of effort, and that is something that, in my head, you would probably strike a ad hoc committee for a period of 6 months or something like that. What we're talking more about is a smaller scale, let's move things along.
Further comments from members? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I still have some reservations similar to the ones expressed by Councillor Mayette. I really want to try to make sure that we have an opportunity for citizen vision in this process, and my discomfort with the recommendation of having small isolated task force or groups of 2 people is that the vision that's being carried out is not necessarily a broader citizen's vision, not having enough opportunity for that to be realized. That's why, as I spoke before, I think the idea of having, for some issues like waterfront, which to me is such a very, very important part of our whole community, I'd like to see a hybrid model so that we bring back something like that and we allow for subcommittees within waterfront, but to just have our waterfront decisions or input made by handpicking a couple of people to deal with certain issues. To me, that's not really going to do it for me. I just really want to have for waterfront committee. I would like to have a committee that includes that kind of opportunity for citizen vision, as opposed to bringing in 2 or 3 people for specific tasks. So that's my discomfort with this particular model.
And that's, I think at this stage, that's a good comment. And we can, I think as we go forward now, we can heard these comments, and maybe there's more to come, but we've heard these comments. If we move the recommendation forward, we can develop a policy, and hopefully we can come back with something that is satisfactory and that meets the expectations of council, recognizing that the intent, the purpose of what we're doing here is to draw more people in. And that's what we want to do. We want to draw more people into the process. We want more and a broader range of people to be engaged and to be doing things that really engage them. And so that's what I want. I know that's what you guys want too. And so hopefully we can come up with something. David will do it. It's no problem for David. He'll do it. And come up with something that gets us there. I think we can do a lot better than our committee's process right now in that. And I think my hope would be that we pass this and we look forward with some positivity toward an opportunity to really get more people involved in the process. Are there further comments to the Vice Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, if this, I mean, I'll be supporting the recommendation. I think we need to get to the next step to at least take a look at the report and see what the CEO is proposing. If this is turned down tonight, it's status quo.
It depends on the recommendations of the striking committee, frankly. Anyway, let's not be too gloomy yet. Perhaps it'll pass. Is there any further discussion? Then I'll ask all in favor of the recommendation. Opposed? That's carried. Okay. That moves us then on to item 2, the Code of Conduct report, and I assume the clerk has that. The clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So this report presents the Code of Conduct for the council members. The code was updated and adopted in 2017, and the purpose of presenting the code this evening is so that members are aware of its content. The Integrity Commissioner will be present on February the 25th to go over the code with you and answer any of your questions. So following the presentation from the Integrity Commissioner, council members will be in a position to sign their commitment to adhering to the Code of Conduct.
Thank you. This computer's not working. Can I see the recommendation, David? It is recommended that we, the members of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, having read the Council Code of Conduct, hereby state our commitment to observe the Code of Conduct for 2018 to 2022 term and agree to affix our signatures thereon. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Any, so I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. All right, so that moves us on to item 3, staff report on council staff relations policy. The clerk.
Thank you. So effective March 1st, the Municipal Act will require municipalities to adopt a policy regarding the relationship between the council members and the officers and the employees of the municipality. The policy attached to the report meets the legislative requirements. The Town of Saugeen Shores currently has a number of documents that promote a positive working relationship between council and staff. And those are specifically your Code of Conduct for the council members, the Employee Code of Conduct, the Workplace Violence, Discrimination, and Harassment Program, and the Procedural Bylaw. So the policy before you brings together the sections of those existing documents that relate to council staff relations and outlines an applicable monitoring process.
Thank you. The recommendation is the council adopt the council staff relations policy. Questions or comments to the recommendation? I would just make the comment, and it's important to note that this is a requirement now under the Act for all municipalities to have this particular policy in place. In my experience, the council and staff of the Town of Saugeen Shores have had an excellent working relationship, and this is certainly no reflection on that, but it's good to have it written down. It'll be a good document for us all to follow and abide and to codify that relationship. So with no further discussion, I'll ask all in favor of the recommendation. That's carried. And that moves us then on to the 4th report, the pregnancy and parental leave for members of council. The clerk.
Thank you. Again, effective March the 1st, the Municipal Act does require you to have this policy in place. So currently, if a member is absent for more than 3 successive months without a resolution of council, the member seat becomes vacant. Under the revised legislation, a member can take a pregnancy or parental leave of absence without fear of being removed from office. And that leave is for up to 20 consecutive weeks or less, coinciding with the birth or adoption of a child. So the attached policy confirms council's commitment to ensuring that the members may take the leave without affecting their seat on council. The leave does not require the approval of council. The policy also sets out that the member on leave will not be expected to attend meetings, but they may do so if they wish. The member will continue to receive remuneration and benefits during the leave, which is consistent with the remuneration practice for members who are absent up to 3 consecutive months.
Thank you. The recommendation is the council adopt the pregnancy and parental leave for members of council policy. Questions or comments to the recommendation? I had a question actually, Linda, about the remuneration. The member will continue to receive remuneration and benefits during the leave. Will that be during the entire leave, or because it says which is consistent with the remuneration practice for a member who's absent for up to 3 successive months? Under the current regime, a member would receive remuneration for the 3 months, and then if they didn't appear, they'd be likely removed from council. But that is lifted with regard to this. What happens to remuneration after 3 months? Does it continue?
That is correct. Remuneration will continue for the entire parental leave or pregnancy leave.
Okay. If there's nothing further, then I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay, so that moves us on to 5.3, Environmental Services and Transportation, and we have two reports. And the first one is a staff report on Strategic Asset Management Policy, and Laura has the presentation. Apologies for not having your title. Laura.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Supervisor Asset Management.
As you are aware, the province has mandated new asset management requirements under the regulation 588-17. So part of these requirements include the asset management policy has to be complete by July 1st, 2019. We are currently ahead of schedule and it's ready for you tonight. Our asset management staff and our asset management advisory committee have prepared the strategic asset management policy that aligns with our corporate strategic plan. The policy summarizes our commitment to asset management and outlines our objectives and principles that will govern how we work to achieve our service delivery goals.
Thank you to the Supervisor of Asset Management and GIS for the report. And we have a recommendation that Council endorse the Strategic Asset Management Policy dated January 8th, 2019, prepared by staff. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Councillor Schreider.
Thank you. Through you, Laura. Just a kudos to you and the department, because I know how big of a job this is. And our asset management, I remember when we started developing it actually, and now we're in 2019. So good for you for where it's at. I guess it's just a question for you, and I think too, it again proves that Saugeen Shores is an industry leader because you're ahead of the game already. How are we with our other assets, not I guess identified core assets? We're tracking those, and they're included in our...
They are included in the asset management program. We have them a really good inventory, actually, in the GIS. As far as the asset management program, this new legislation kind of made us rework the entire program that we had how we had planned to do it. As you remember, we were moving ahead with community services a few years ago, so we do have that inventory. Our parks, our facilities, street furniture, you name it, we have it all. Excuse me, inventoried. Part of the new asset management regulations here, they've actually given us deadlines. So that includes the policy in 2019, 2021 for core assets, so that will be our focus. And then 2023 for all other TCAs, or as you see in this policy, we're actually recommending not just our tangible capital assets, but also our critical assets. And then in 2024, there's what they call further details required, like levels of service and the financial portion of it. So we're not certainly abandoning the other resources or other assets. We do have them as an inventory, and we work with them a lot, but they are not going to be our focus at this point unless directed otherwise.
That's great. Thank you.
Further questions? Thank you very much for all of your work on putting this together. We really are leaders in Saugeen Shores in this area, and it's much due to your work and to the work of the Department of Infrastructure and Development, so we appreciate your work very much and looking forward to the next steps, and there's a few more steps to come over the coming years, so we'll be monitoring that closely. So you've heard the recommendation. All in favor? That's carried. So that moves us then on to the second staff report for the River Road Slope Stability Study and Class EA, and the Director of Infrastructure and Development has the report.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The River Road close to Bruce Road 17 crosses Burgoyne Creek. Just up from this bridge, the creek also turns a bend. So we know that water likes to find the easiest path, and as it's doing this around this bend, it's trying to take a bit of the bank away, and there's some toe failure that's happening. So the bank erosion has become more severe, and last year we hired engineers to take a look at it. When they came back with a recommendation, we needed to confirm the process that needed to be followed. So the province has something called a municipal Class EA process, and at every stage of a project you want to go back and confirm the scope of the work and make sure that you're following the right public consultation process. When we did that, we confirmed that we should be following a Class EA Schedule B for this work, which means we have to identify who needs to be consulted, alternatives, give them, those stakeholders, the information, listen to what they want as input, and then come up with a preferred solution. This we need to do before we go to construction. So we're here before you today to ask to continue the work with the same consultant that did the original investigation and move forward through the Schedule B Class EA, so that hopefully in 2020 we can do construction of the preferred alternative.
Thank you. So I'll read the recommendation, and then we'll take any questions. It's recommended that Council accept the technical memorandum for the River Road Stream Bank Stabilization completed by R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited, which includes the geotechnical investigation of the slope stability asset assessment completed by Chung and Vander Dolan Engineering Limited, and that Council authorize funds to be used from the Roads Reserve to fund non-budgeted Schedule B municipal class environmental assessment on the Burgoyne Creek Stream Bank Stabilization adjacent to the River Road to be completed by R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited for $45,553 plus applicable HST. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Okay. All in favor? Carried. All right. That moves us on to item 5.5, Community Services, Parks and Recreation. We have a staff report on the 5-year lease renewal with Izzard Street residents, and the Director of Community Services has the report.
Yes, this evening I provided you a 5-year lease agreement for what we call our Shipley Trail portion of their trail network. We've been able to negotiate a 5-year agreement with the landowners. Previously it was 3 years. And we've solidified the erection of a fence on the top of the ridge, working with the developer. I must admit the developer's gone above and beyond our expectations and has met regularly with representatives of the landowners along the Shipley Trail as well.
Thank you very much. Then we have a recommendation that Council passes the bylaw to authorize the landowner land use agreement between the town of Saugeen Shores and owners of lands known as the Shipley Izzard Trail linkage. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's really a comment, Jane, and I think the community needs to be aware. This is just a wonderful thing that those 6 residents do down there on Izzard Shipley Avenue, or Izzard I should say. I mean, that Shipley Trail for decades has been used by members of the public, and it's really the goodness of their hearts. I mean, they've opened up the use of that trail. We provide general liability insurance, obviously, but they've asked for a fence up top, and it's going to be constructed in the spring, and that's a good news story. But it really is a wonderful thing that those 6 residents are doing for us, for the community, is opening up the use of Shipley Trail. And the fact that you've gone from 3 years to 5 years, Jane, I think is wonderful too. So good for you, good for the residents, good thanks to the residents, and it's nice to see 5 years. So thanks.
Thanks for those comments. Further questions or comments with regard to the recommendation? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And quickly, I'd like to echo those sentiments. I actually don't do a lot of hiking, but I do hike that trail quite often, and it's a wonderful trail. And I remember during my days on the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee when we first got that land use agreement, it was a real breakthrough because there was a chance that we were going to lose that. So I think satisfying those property owners and maintain that open trail, which is a very well used trail, is a great thing. And
yeah, Vice Deputy Mayor.
Would it be appropriate, because I think sometimes we, community members like this perhaps don't hear directly from council. I would like, if I can make a recommendation, a suggestion to staff from council, you, Mr. Mayor, a letter of thank you to those 6 residents on behalf of council. I know staff probably sent it out, but I think it'd just be nice to hear from our mayor and council that we really do appreciate what they do for the community. Can we do that?
Yeah, certainly we can.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? I just want to say thanks to you, Jane, for your work on this. I know this is taking a long process to get completed, and just echo what my colleagues have said. It's great to see it done, and a lot of hard work went into this, and it's good to have it set up for the next 5 years. So, if there's nothing further, then all in favor of the recommendation. That's carried. So that moves us on to communications, petitions for committee of the whole information. And there are 5 items there that you can look at. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, number 3, we have the Planning Committee meeting canceled on February 19th. Is Committee of Adjustment canceled as well, or does it continue on?
Clerk?
I will have to double check for you. This notice only applies to your planning meeting.
Anything further on any of those communications petitions? Anything, so that moves you on to item 6, reports of municipal councillors policy, and my report there. And I said in that report that I would give you an update on the Bruce County budget deliberations, and I will just briefly. As was mentioned earlier, the county passed its budget last Thursday with a levy increase of 4.42%, which after taking 1.3% of growth into account came out to a net levy increase of 3.12%. It's a very lean budget. There's funding in the budget now to proceed with the review of the Bruce County official plan this year in 2019, a continuation of the Bruce GPS project, which you will have seen. So that's very exciting, and that was a very well received project, Bruce GPS, and so we're going to continue that momentum right into the official plan update, and it's badly in need of an update. There's also going to be work this year on the affordable housing project in Kincardine, and also the Museum Community Wing project. Both are not funded in the budget at this time, but reports are going to be coming from staff in the near future to talk about how we will fund these projects, and certainly long-term financing is going to be part of the discussion for both of those projects. Important to note, and I think it's worth commenting on, the county council passed the 2019 countywide tax ratios, and I think one thing that goes underappreciated is how low the tax rate is in Bruce County as compared to some other places, particularly for multi-residential properties. Multi-residential properties in Bruce County the ratio is set 1-to-1 with single-family homes, which is, when you do the comparison across Southwest Ontario, unheard of. The average is 1.85 to 1. So if you are building multi-residential apartment buildings in Saugeen Shores or anywhere in Bruce County, you're experiencing an extremely low tax rate compared to just about anywhere else. I think that's a message that we really ought to send to, as part of our economic development message. The Bruce County tax rate is $386 per $100,000 of assessment. In 2018, the Southwestern Ontario average tax rate is $453 per $100,000 in assessment. So not only do you have that difference, nearly $70 difference in the tax rate per $100,000 of assessment, you also have multi-residential, which is taxed much lower again because of the ratios. So I think it's a really outstanding place to do business and to build, and that's a clear message that came out of that. So that's my update on the budget, and I just also wanted to make the comment, you'll see two letters there that were hand-delivered by myself and Councillor Dave Mayette at Roma, one with regard to education and one with regard to infrastructure spending for recreation. And I thank the Vice Deputy Mayor for his assistance in drafting the one on recreation. It was both of those letters were well received by the ministries, and hopefully we can make some progress. And I just note one typo in the education one. I do know that there are 3 elementary schools in Port Elgin, not 2, but we're focused on public schools and not separate schools, which should have read 2 public elementary schools. Anyway, just to be clear. So those things are there for your information, and that is my report. If there's no questions on that, then we will move forward to reports of department heads. And item 1, the information report, the written statement of disclosure of pecuniary interest, and the clerk.
Thank you. So I do want to bring it to your attention that you currently, when you declare pecuniary interest, you state it verbally. Effective March the 1st, you'll also be required to file a written statement stating what the general nature of your pecuniary interest is. And so you're to file that at the meeting or immediately following the meeting, as soon as possible thereafter. The form that you need to complete is attached to the report, but it's also in your desk drawers if you so need them. Come after March the 1st. If you have any questions with regards to filing it, you can certainly we can certainly get you more information.
Any questions with regard to that information report? All right, and we have one more, and it's information report on Island Street and the Director of Infrastructure and Development.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Starting in 2016, Council had directed staff to investigate ways to improve the outlet and beach area at Island Street. This was carried out through grants and done by a consultant. When the background studies were initiated, it came back that the outlet could potentially qualify as fish habitat. They also came back with a long list of studies that would need to be required to get through a Schedule C Class EA if it was necessary. Staff came back to Council and recommended that we do a few of the background studies at the beginning to get an idea of what that scope would be and better be able to budget moving forward and scope back those studies. So that was done this year, and as you can read through the report, that channel has been identified as a potential fish habitat. So any of our preferred alternatives would require maintaining that outlet or that channel. So what we're doing now is bringing the report back to council without a recommendation of doing anything forward, and we look to council to give us direction as to what their desire is to move forward.
Okay, we have the, thank you, Amanda. We have the report there. I guess I'll ask members if they have comments they would like to make at this time. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Adam, for all your work on the project. And I have to say the report was fascinating, just reading through and looking at all the different species that are living in that area and seeing that reported. And I'm sure everybody, well, not everybody knows, but this was something, this project is something that's near and dear to my heart because it is, if you haven't been down to the Island Street Storm Sewer Outlet, that channel, while it may be a fish habitat, is a pretty ugly area, and it threatens the health of one of the most important beaches in our community. And I understand the need to protect wildlife. I'm really concerned, though, about the health of our beaches because when I put forward this motion originally, I saw this as, and I think I had the support of members of council, that this would be a blueprint for, I think we have 29 outlets in total like this flowing onto our beaches. And at the time, I mentioned that I had read and heard Dr. Alan Crow speak about the fact that for our beaches to be maintained and to be healthy, one of the most important things we need to do is to keep water from flowing onto them. And this is an example of a major stormwater outlet really threatening the health of that beach. So I understand where you are. I understand that, and I've already asked Adam if I can meet with him and speak and get some more details about the challenges. I think the report lays them out, but I also want to see if there's some way that we can try to explore grant opportunities, because at the time that I started working on this project, I spoke to several people who were experts in the area, in this particular area, who really said that they thought that there would be major grant opportunities available because it is such an important issue of stormwater management for beaches, not just in our community, but throughout the entire Great Lakes are facing issues like this. So I understand where you are. I want to keep working on it. Thank you for all your work on it.
Thank you for your comments. Further comments with regard to this item? Okay, so that's that information report. So, without anything further, it's 9:05, so I will do announcements by members. If there's any announcements, we'll start with the Deputy Mayor. Do you have anything? Nope. The Vice Deputy Mayor, anything tonight? Yes? Turn your microphone on there, Mike, if you don't mind.
I just wanted to, it's just a shout out to the snowplow operators in the last, since Christmas. It's been extraordinary, the efforts. And if I hear it once, I've heard it 100 times, members of the community since the Christmas season, how wonderful job they're doing with their work, keeping our streets clear. And people in the community are really very much appreciative of their great efforts. And, man, if you could pass on that note to your staff, I really appreciate that. And you do a wonderful job. Coulter Parkette is, can we do two items or one? Right. Coulter Parkette is downtown Port Algon this weekend, Snowfest, and 10 to 3. And don't want to miss out on their Snow Mountain and a whole bunch of other things happening. Port Algon BIA do a good job with that event, the downtown business. So families together and come down downtown Port Elgin this Saturday. It's going to be a great time.
Okay, Councillor Schreider.
Through you. On January 17th, the FDA announced the approval of the first stem and gene therapy treatment for cystinosis. As many of you already know, Olivia Little is a 9-year-old who lives with this disease here in Saugeen Shores. Her parents, Chad and Erin Little, founded Live a Little Foundation, which supports the research that is helping fund new treatments and ultimately a cure for cystinosis. If the gene and stem therapy prove to work, this could be the cure for cystinosis. Phase 1 was to select the patient, which is over 18 years old, and phase 2 would be to administer the drug. If proven effective and safe, the trial will continue to add different age groups of patients. Chad and Erin remain hopeful that this will be the cure for Olivia, and one day she will celebrate her healthy ever after. As a community, we should be all very proud of what we are helping the Little family to accomplish. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Yes, I would just like to echo Mayor Charbonneau's earlier comments regarding the current and potential local economic development opportunities here in Saugeen Shores. And I would like to formally congratulate the Bruce County and Bruce Power's Nuclear Economic Development and Innovation Initiative, which was recently awarded the Local Collaboration and Partnerships Award by the Economic Developers Council on January 31st.
Thank you. Councillor Rich. Nothing. Councillor Grace. Nothing. Councillor Carr. Nothing. Councillor Mayette. Nothing. And nothing from me. So with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Schreider. All in favor? We're adjourned. We'll reconvene at 5 after the hour.